Hey guys, it is Scotch for Dummies.
Four guys in Scotch.
All four of us here on time tonight. This is first in a while.
Almost unprecedented.
Happy Thursday.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Drew.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Mark.
Happy Thursday.
Welcome
And I'm
to the
pouring my
bar.
first dram of the night.
Yeah, right. We've been doing reviews.
It's going to be a good show.
A good show.
A great show.
Excellent show. So we have quite the agenda this evening,
Oh,
gentlemen.
it's going to be fun.
So, start the night off with, let's say hi to everybody.
Who's on, man?
Is it, I saw. I
Scroll
was
up.
checking the live chat, and I noticed we were first to comment on the live chat, which is awesome.
Trooper Henry said someday I'll be first, damn it.
Maybe.
Obviously, Bob's on, and he's been drinking the Kilkerran 8. I think he's going to go through that pretty quick.
Yeah. Too bad that we got to wait for the U.S. release. They say it's coming.
They say it's coming. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Don't pay the
and
$200 for it right now. Just wait. It'll be good.
Steve's on, of course. We just got done talking to him
Thanks,
on the pre-show on Discord. So if you guys don't know anything about that and you're a patron, you need to get on the pre-show and the post-show because we get on Discord and talk some more.
Yep.
Chat it up.
Hey, gents. Who's that? Rostislav?
Yep.
Rostislav? Good for joining
Greg
me.
Bowers is on here. KB.
KB. My man KB.
One lost cause.
Stuff for work. Mark Jake G.
Of course.
Andrew Spurl. Wheelhouse Whiskey. Welcome, sir.
We got something for
We,
him tonight.
we do indeed.
Mhm.
Who else we got on here?
Tom R. What do you think,
Ooh,
right?
Man.
The Linux Cat.
Hello,
Yep.
Linux
He
Cat.
was
week.
on last week. We talked
Welcome,
about
welcome.
him.
Yeah, man.
Gregor's on here. Whiskey to Success is on here.
There's Cause. I knew. I'm like, where's one last Cause?
Malt
Really?
Minion's in here. Yeah, we got it.
Brienne,
We got
good to
it.
see you. Derek.
Man.
Zach
Darling.
Andrews. Brienne, yeah. So it looks like we got a pretty good crowd starting off.
Yep.
What's on the plate tonight, gents?
Well, we're going to start off with this Glendronach that we sampled.
Since we all just poured it, we can talk
Well,
through it.
so it was the review we posted on Monday.
It
was.
happens to be the topic of tonight's show.
Yes.
Sure, and it's the review's doing really well. I mean, there's been 2,000 views on it. People are interested in this particular bottle, which is probably more than I thought.
I will too.
We've got a lot of good comments on it. There's been a lot of good comments on the channel altogether.
So,
It's been
Can
keeping
we
me busy.
describe what the bottle was? For the
What-
podcast people?
No, for the podcast people, this is
The Glendronach Port Wood. So it is finished in Port Wood. This is
10 years old.
10 years old. What's the ABV on this thing?
46.
46.
I think it's, and what did they say? I can't remember from the review. It's 8 years
It
in.
took 7 years in their typical sherry, I think, and then 3 years in Portwood.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I know struck me was that I thought that they did a pretty good job with the port finishing part of it. Just because port's tough.
Right.
If you do it too long, it can get bitter, it can get overdone, but you can also, just get a splash of it, and then it's almost like, well, I
What was the
don't
point?
get any of the port, So I think they did, and I'm not surprised it's Glendronach. So they did a nice job of getting a good balance. You get some of the port without, you can still get to the whiskey. It doesn't taste bitter. It doesn't, throw everything off. It's actually kind of nice.
But so, I mean, a wine dummy here. Why? Why is that? There are so many sherry finished scotches out there. That's everybody's finishing sherry. I mean, it almost sounds like that one's too easy, right?
It
What are we
is.
gonna put this in? I don't know. Put it in the next barrel of head sherry, and it'll be fine. But you don't see many ports. Is that just because? Is it a flavor profile
Is it
thing?
expensive?
What is? Is it expensive? I don't know.
My guess would be that, I mean, it's just a different style of wine.
Yeah, see, my view is that sherry is kind of close to whiskey in its kind of flavor profile with the sweetness, and I mean, so
So
you
it
can-
complements it.
It complements it really well, and so you can kind of marry those together, and you can over sherry things, but it's really hard. You can under sherry, which you can barely taste that because the whiskey and the sherry marries well. So you have a lot broader range of running with that sherry. Whereas port, it's almost a contrast flavor. So if you hit too much port,
I think it gets that tannic, bitter red wine. That if it's overdone, kind of stands out to me because we've had a couple that I was like, something doesn't taste right. It's almost like grape pits, or
Right.
like
there's
the
a
seeds,
few other
like
ones
there's-
out there. I think
yeah, it's-
Dalmore's got one.
yeah.
Port Finish. They're out there.
But then there's a few that we've tried that you take a sip and you're like, man, it tastes like whiskey. Like where's
There's
the?
no port in
I don't hear.
Yeah.
I don't get any port in
they
that.
poured it through.
So and I get it. I mean, you're pouring expensive stuff in this cask, and you're
Right.
like, I don't want to overdo it, but. I think that there are times when it's underdone as well. So, you're paying for that port finish and you're not really getting the fruits of the labor.
So foreshadowing to later on in the show, we're really going to dive into this,
Yes.
and I'm really going to lean on Sean because he's probably got the most wine experience.
I'm gonna-
Yeah. he
Well,
does.
tell me.
I'm going to lean on Dr. Scotch a little bit.
Absolutely. But,
Oh, that's an
So,
idea.
so the
Let's see if he's around.
So port, it's been made for hundreds of years. It comes from Portugal. There's a tradition that when the British and the French were fighting, 100 Years' War, I believe, the British stopped buying wine from France, so they were getting it from Portugal. And in order to make it all the way from Portugal to Great Britain without the wine having a problem, they fortified the wine. So they put some
I
grape
see.
brandy in the wine and brought the proof up so that it was a little bit stronger, so that it could make the journey and last. And,
Not
and
go
so
bad.
yeah, and so that's why
Mine's
it's
gone bad.
exactly. So it's a fortified wine. So it's about 20 ABV. So it's got a little bit more of a
Oh, is
kick than a normal wine would have.
Normal wine's like, what, 14?
And they do it with grape brandy. So I mean it's distilled. It's the same wine distilled, and they're knocking that in to bring up that ABV, and then they're aging it. So ruby ports are aged like 1 to 3 years, 1 to
Something like
5
that.
years, and then tawnies are aged longer. And the tawnies are going to be more brownish, copper in color, and they're going to have a little bit older flavor profile. Honestly, they're not going to have those bright fruits. It's going to be a little more old and musty kind of taste, dried fruits and things like
so
that.
for a comparison, to help my lack of understanding these different wines, compare a port and a sherry. I take a glass of each and throw it down into you. What am I going to tell is different? Which one's going to?
It's totally
Night and day, right?
different.
Sherry's
Totally
not fortified, is it?
It is a fortified wine,
Okay.
but you're talking about different wine styles. The ports, you're going to get more ruby fruits and stuff like that. The sherries to me are. I'm with Andrew. I would put them more along the lines of like a whiskey. It's sweeter to me, like more like sugary. Whereas the ports to me are much more like a big bold red wine.
They're like raspberry and blueberry
Yeah.
and those kind of things. So it's a.
But the
sweeter-
problem with that is when you're putting whiskey into a port cask and it's got some of those crazy flavors, like those aren't in
Yeah.
the whiskey.
Who likes blueberry whiskey? Doesn't work too well.
Somebody out there likes
I like
blueberry
blueberry
whiskey.
coffee.
I'm just gonna say, but I think that there are times when I think you have to be very careful when you're doing the port finishes that you're picking the right port casks. So what kind of port was in this? What did they season this with?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's a ruby versus a tawny, obviously I think the tawnies probably lend themselves to better aging of the whiskeys, more complementary flavors. I don't think there's going to be anything that's like at angles with what the whiskey's got going on, but you've got a lot of weird flavors that aren't necessarily found in the whiskey, so I think you can overdo it. Or you might find something in the whiskey that isn't harmonious with the stuff in the port accidentally. I mean,
Is
you
this
may
a good
think
time
that
to bring
it's
in Dr. Scotch to
Well,
just talk through the making of.
Let's finish talking
Well,
about. Let's
yeah,
go through
let's
this
go through the
review on
bottle,
this
yeah.
Glendronach. There's a couple new shout outs. I saw Lee just got in, so Scotch in the Bayou's here. Got to make a shout out to one of our Xbox buddies that's on. Hey Nick, man, it's good to see you, brother. We've sent him a few
Richie Z?
samples. Richie Z is in, and they're
DBSG?
I also saw one comment that I wanted to get to before it gets lost up there. I think it was One Lost Cause that mentioned. You guys were talking about in the chat about the Kilkerran 8. And there was one website that we were all ordering from. And I think it was One Lost Cause mentioned that the price had gone up. I can explain that. I actually talked to the owner of that website. He's in the Netherlands, and he's called me a few times. He had 9 bottles left at the current price point, and he went out and bought. Because I contacted him, I said, "Hey, how fast is that going off the shelf now that we reviewed it?" And he said, "Well, it's actually flying off like bread." How about a little kickback here? But no, we didn't. he said that he reached out and he bought 24 more bottles privately, so he had to pay more for those 24 bottles. So he said, when these 9 are gone, the price is going to go up on my website because I got to recoup the cost that it cost me for these extra 24. So the fact that they're still available is a good thing, but that explains the price increase. So anyway, let's finish our review on this Glendronach, because then we want to get into this whole wine discussion more and really. Well, we got some Scotch in there.
And we got a blind.
Yeah, we do.
taste
We got
later
a
on.
blind. We got some fun stuff to go. So,
So this is, and the weird thing is when I taste this, you do get a hint of that red berry.
Yep.
But it's just a hint. It's still whiskey. It's still Scotch. You still got some sherry base in there, but you just get a tap of that blueberry or the real red fruit.
I mean, honestly, really cemented for me was when you talked about the balance of the port. Because if you close your eyes and you've had a couple of Glendronach, it's a Glendronach. You can taste the Glendronach there, but it's got just a hint of that port in there. It's just a really perfect balance for everything. It melds really well together. And like you guys already stated, I've not had one this well balanced before, and that's what's really neat about it. And it gives it that kind of a more potent fruit taste to it, a berry taste to it. And it's kind of nice. It's different.
But it's not over the top, because
It's not over the
like we
top.
talked about on the review, like you're going up, and then it's
Boom.
you hit that point, and that's it.
No, it's
You
not good
know?
anymore.
Like if you wait one extra day, it's been in there too long, I think. So
Kudos to Rachel for.
yeah, I mean, because it's
she
very
knows
well
what
done.
she's doing.
Yeah.
So I see Travis Faircloth on, and Travis is a big sherry bomb guy. Loves some of these Glendronachs, these older single cask Glendronachs. When I close my eyes and I drink this, I agree with you 100%, Drew. Yes, I Glendronach. I got it. I know this is a Glendronach, but it is so much different than a sherry bomb Glendronach.
Sure.
To me, this one's a little bit more edgier and a little bit more spicier, but I actually do get a little bit of that fruit note that you were talking about, and it's completely different from the sherry bomb finish.
Yeah.
I mean, but I appreciate that I still recognize Glendronach at the base, which she did a good job. It's very interesting. I can't remember what the price point was on this bottle. Do you?
80?
80?
85,
Oh, really?
85, I think.
Is that
it's
10 year.
I appreciate the fact that they also didn't make a big. We talked about this in the review. They made port the center, the focus.
Yeah.
You don't see an age statement on here, but there is an age
There is
statement on the bottle. Yes, it's matured for 10 years, but you don't see it printed all over the place to make a big deal of it being 10 years old. They want you to focus on the fact that this was a port wood finished Scotch.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Put it in a purple.
Right.
bottle.
I mean, so and they did. She did good. I mean, she hit a home
think
run
it's
with it.
really,
Right.
It's delicious. It's nice. It's not so sweet where you would call it like a dessert type Scotch.
True.
But it's on that side, right? It's on that fruity sweetness side of it where it's great for an after dinner Scotch if you want to. Right?
So how does it compare to the Quinta Reuben? Boy, if I had,
I would say that this one has a little bit more fruit.
I
Yeah.
think it's a little bit stronger, a little bit
The
more
Quinta
bold.
Reuben to me is a little bit lighter. You still get a little bit of the port, but to me that's one that's got a hint of port. And there's some that we've had that were port finished. I'm trying to think of the one that we had that were like, where's the port at?
And there's
Might be a dumb.
there's a
Might
reason
have
they changed the age of their Quinta Reuben from 12 to 14 because it's 10 years in their base cask, and they put additional 4 years in the port cask because
All right, so smell that.
the sourcing of their port barrels and things.
That's the
they
tawny.
needed to age it in there another
Tawny?
4 years to get the flavor out of it.
So the Quinta, I remember it was a really good pairing with because it wasn't as sweet. It was a great pairing with creme brulee.
You're not gonna like my expression.
Whereas something like this paired with creme brulee might be too sweet.
Oh wow, these are both ports.
Yes.
That one smell. No one's gonna get this. Maybe somebody out there will get it. So if any of you guys are big Indian food fans, I'm a big fan of Indian food, and they make a pickle mango. It's called pickle, and that's what the first one smelled like to me. I'm like, oh man, this smells like some Indian pickle to me.
Indian pickle.
Oh man, I
It
love
will
that
not
stuff.
taste like it, I
It will not
guarantee
taste
it.
like it.
We need a pork glass. Let's do.
Anyway,
let's do
so
one of these.
for those of you
Yeah.
listening at home, we're opening up 2 different kinds of port wines, and we're going to pour these out, and we're going to talk through kind of what makes port
Color on that.
different.
So what we have here is Porto Kopka Special Reserve, and Kopka 10-year tawny port, matured in wood. So those are essentially special reserve is a older
An older ruby.
So the goal of this experiment is to give us, it's almost like your marzipan a long time ago. It's to
Yeah.
give us an understanding of what the port taste is. We think we know what it is.
Yep.
This is going straight to the source,
Yep.
right?
Right.
Yep. So this particular house is, I guess, the oldest port-producing house in Portugal.
Well, yeah,
They've been doing it since 1632.
I've been around a minute.
Yeah, like 400 years.
Whatever.
So let's start with the ruby.
Where's the-
So deep, dark red, right?
Yeah.
So this is aged like 5 years or so,
Doesn't say. So,
and it smells like a red wine.
yeah,
Okay, so I mean
perfect.
it's much more of a
Yeah.
red
I mean,
wine smell, right?
To me, it smells like it looks. I'm like, that's
It's
when
the
I smell
color-
it, that's what I expected.
It's the color of the Glendronach bottle or can. I mean,
It
it's
really is.
purple,
It really is.
You can't see through it. It's opaque.
It smells great. It reminds me of Welch's grape jelly.
Yep.
At 20%
Well,
ABV.
Put a little alcohol in there, of course. I mean, why not?
Yeah, that's that's great too.
Well, and that's the whole point. The rubies are generally like really fruit forward. They're really bold in fruit flavors. When they make this wine, they keep mixing up the maturation tank, so they get a lot of transfer
Wow.
of the color.
Ooh, that's sweet.
I mean, I didn't taste it.
Yeah, that tastes like the hint of the port I'm getting in that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's probably true because,
That's
but
nice.
honestly,
It's nice. I
well,
like it.
the other question though. Okay, we need to call Dr. Scotch because there's a lot of information going on here.
Man, I almost feel like I'm getting communion.
It is a communion wine.
It's just a
It
little
does-
longer.
but you know what? This one, to me, the nose smells like it's going to really hit you in the face, but it's just really nice. It's a nice drink.
It is. It's,
Um,
it's super.
Wow.
It's super smooth. Like,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
finish is cut. Nothing.
It is pretty dry too. Actually, it might be a little too sweet for
It,
me.
it is a really pungent sweetness.
So then let's move on to the tawny. Now the tawnies, I mean, you can get old tawny,
Yeah.
right? This is a 10-year-old tawny, so that means that the average age of the wines in this cask is 10 years. So there might be a little bit from a 30-year-old.
So it's different than whiskey.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not the youngest, it's the average.
All right.
All right.
So for our podcasters, the ruby is on the nose is basically Welch's grape juice, whatever you said jam, I think, and then
Yep.
on the palate it's super sweet up front, and then just smooth dryness. I mean,
Right.
to it. And we got
Yep.
a
Time out. We gotta
Hold
say
on a
hi to
second.
Bob.
Bobby.
For more kill
counter.
Karen.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks, Bob.
That's good stuff.
You know the funny thing is he's saying that, and he out of everybody on there, he probably has more bottles than anybody else.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, once you find a bottle you like,
Thanks, Bob.
Are you getting any other notes
Thanks,
out of
Bob.
this now that you had a sip of the ruby?
yeah, totally.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That red ruby grape flavor is coming.
It actually made the whiskey way more sweeter to me.
Yeah. Maybe it's still potent.
All right. So if you look at the tawny compared to the ruby, it's got like a brownish tint to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right?
It's
Uh,
lighter.
like a
It's clear.
copper color.
It's
Yeah, it's lost. It's
it's not opaque anymore. It's transparent. You can see that.
Is that just because it's this that's been sitting in a cask a lot longer?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
And we've seen a lot of scotches that have tawny port, right?
Yeah. And most of them that are aged. This is the more popular of the two varieties of port.
Okay.
Like my grandfather drank tawny port. Like he drank a glass a day forever. So thanks to him, we have port finished Scotch.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But you know, I like tawnies, and I used to drink a glass with them every once in a while. But it's a very different flavor profile.
Tom or Sean, would you say that ruby is similar to PX and tawny is similar to Oloroso? Good question. I haven't had tawny to talk about it.
All right.
I don't think so.
Relatively, yes, because the ruby is sweeter, younger, brighter. The tawnies are more matured, more
Yeah.
aged. So
you're gonna
they are
get
not
some
the
of the-
same. I would not compare a ruby to a PX, but relative to the wine,
To the
sure,
flavor
yeah.
profiles and stuff like that.
So yeah, I was just gonna. I completely. No, they're not, Tom, when you think about apples to apples and oranges to oranges. But when I put my nose into them, and if I had sherry PX and Oloroso when I did this, and then I'd be like, yep, they're about the same as far apart each other. I mean, this tawny smells like an old leather book.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right?
Wow.
it's in there.
And you don't get the same. It's more dried fruits.
Absolutely.
It's like dried apricot and prune, and you get that dusty old leather and old paper.
Well, it's because it's been aged in a barrel for 10 years.
See, I like that one a lot more. I like the regular port, right? The young
I
one.
like the nose in this.
That's good. I like
But
tawny port,
it's sweet. It's too sweet for me. The tawny loses a little bit of its sweetness, and it's very enjoyable.
I think it loses some of its like sugary sweetness. I think it's still sweet, but it's more refined. You know what I mean?
Wow, does it on the nose? After doing this wine thing, all I'm getting is vanilla. I'm getting
It's
the
like
oak out of this.
eating candy versus eating like creme brulee. You know what I mean?
Definitely more refined. That's a great word for that. Like it's still sugary,
Right.
but nowhere near the sweetness factor is what that is. That's like a hard hit of sweet. Well, this is more rounded. You get I can get some oranges and a couple other things.
Literally
out of it.
taste older, right?
All right. So now you guys have tried two different styles of
Wow, now I'm
port,
curious.
right? Two different kinds of port. So let's say I gave you 2 barrels of whiskey. Like one's a peated whiskey and one's just like a sweet sherry whiskey like a Glendronach. Which port cask, or do you use the same one, do you put those whiskeys in to give it a port finish?
I got to go tawny because I think the tawny port it would, I think, pair better with.
Okay. Can I answer it like a little cheating style and ambiguously and say it's different? I honestly think that it depending on the flavor profile I'm trying to get. I honestly say because if I think I'm gonna leave it in that barrel longer, I go with the tawny. But if I'm gonna go for a short maturation,
Well, if you're just splashing it in.
if I'm going for a shorter maturation or finish, we'll call it, I think I'm gonna go with the younger port.
You got to be.
Well, and
Very
I think
careful.
that's where you run into the whiskeys that have these port finishes that you're like, where's the port finish? Because if you go for a ruby or something that's got a lot more flavor, like I'd be nervous. You know what I mean? I would almost be more comfortable putting like a peated Scotch into
The ruby?
because
you think it
it's
might be able
got
to
a
hold
lot
it?
of body, and I think it would hold up and it'd be fine. I think that the tawny, I don't know. I mean, like for the Glendronach, you've already got a fairly sweet profile Scotch that's been aged in sherry for a while, but you're going to put it in something for 3 years. That's a long time,
There's
man.
no way I'd put 3 years on a ruby cask.
See,
a
look,
long
Unless I knew the
time.
ruby
Leanne's
cask was-
experimenting with 4 different kinds of sherry. Steve's got some comments about 30 and 40-year-old tawnies.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure they're
Yeah,
good,
they're
right?
great, man. I've had a 30-year-old before, and it was wonderful. And if you've never had ports or sherries, like just gone out and bought, I mean, these bottles, I just stopped by and picked up. They were like $10-15. I got 375 milliliter bottles. You don't need a ton unless you're planning on drinking a bunch of it.
A lot of
But
sulfur.
I will say at a whiskey tasting, like this is a fun activity. Bring out an Oloroso and a
Oh,
PX
that's great.
sherry
That's a
and let
great
people
idea.
try it, and then try some whiskeys finished in Oloroso and PX, so they've got something to go back to say, oh yeah, that's where that.
Yeah, and
came
they're not
from.
expensive. I mean,
No.
you
It
don't have
tastes
to
as
pay, you
much
don't have to pay
sulfur.
$100
I don't know
for
what
a
this
bottle
is.
of port.
Something that Drew wants us to try after this wine. No, and we actually went through one of these exercises. One of our favorite liquor stores here in Indianapolis, Vine and Table, they do a monthly thing where they get some of their favorite customers, and we actually went through a process where they brought a slew of different spirits, and we started with where the spirit comes from, what it was made from, right? So we drank some whiskey that was actually distilled from beer, like Scotch might be. But we drank some rum that came from sugarcane, and they brought out some molasses or what they brought. This is where the spirit started from, so you can kind of see where it came
progression.
from. It was really cool. It was fun.
So you know what it is, but do you guys know what that is? I blended it with.
I'm just gonna say that there's McKellen because I smell a shit ton of sulfur.
Yeah, it's Macallan. So When you said it, I was like, yeah.
I'm telling you, man, it's like hello. There you go.
Macallan 12. I wanted to grab something of sherry, and that's just right there. So I put some of the
tawny
in it, and it definitely it's a dirty method, of course, but
Sure.
It's different. I mean, it adds a little bit different.
It does add some breadth of sweetness to it, and so by I don't know if that's what Rachel did. Essentially, is take those few casks, and that's the other question: is when you make this, are they exclusively casks that were 7 and 3, or did you say I got 7 and 3s, but I need to add a little more sherry to this because it's not, it's not.
Didn't they say it was 7? Like it was 7 and
7 and 3.
Seven was in just a regular bourbon barrel,
but
right?
The question is, did she have to add some additional 10-year-old casks?
Oh yeah,
to
who
get
knows
them
what
to-
they did
to
technically.
balance
That's
it
a
out.
vague
Maybe
statement.
maybe the pour was too strong.
Right.
That whole blending process. If you talk to a master blender, the things they do and they can do are
Right,
Like,
so-
hey, no. That's what you blended. That's what I said. That's not what I want.
It's like going in the
Get one of
kitchen and
those
watching the
bottles.
chef make your meal, and you're like, "Oh, the magic's gone."
I know.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
somebody, I won't say, one of our very good friends who's in the industry, she's brilliant, had made a comment when we were hanging out with her at one of the dinners or whatever, and she's like, I hate to burst your bubble, but, whiskey making's not as romantic as you think it is. Right?
Yeah.
We've all got this vision of how
Oh, I
whiskey,
wanna live in
it's like, they make the distiller, and it comes out, and they're like, put this in a cask, and,
Be careful
it's,
with it.
right, it's not quite as glorious.
Well, it's like the chef making your food, right?
Right, exactly.
And you go in
I
the
don't wanna
kitchen, and he's
see
just yelling at some poor line cook who's actually making your food, right?
Yeah.
Is what it is.
So we got to see firsthand when we were in Jersey about some of that.
Yeah.
To put it, I mean, it's not the same. But
It's hard work.
It's a lot of work. And a
Making
lot of,
whiskey's
Well, and there's
hard
a lot
work.
of chemistry.
There's a lot of people involved in it. It's a team. Everybody's got to do their part. So, but I think at the end of the day, it's interesting that they're doing things like this. Like, I'm excited that they're trying out some different caskings, and I know in our predictions for this year, we had talked about
Yeah.
caskings being a thing, and I think that's
wow.
just smelling and tasting some of these things when
That's
some
cool.
of these other caskings start coming out, I'll be interested to try some of the things that they're casking with before we get the spirit, just to see how it goes.
So
That's good.
to me, I know it's an age thing, right? That's Ruby's young and Tony's old. But honestly, without knowing that, I just smell it. That's dried fruit and that's fresh fruit. That's me.
That tastes like generic grape juice compared to that. That has like
The beauty is, so what did my wife and I first experienced with ports was pairing like a port wine with like a chocolate raspberry tort. You make that combination, it is like one of the best combinations because the deep rich chocolate is strong enough to balance that, but then you got the raspberries that are in the dessert as well as in the port wine.
Yeah.
And so it's a really great combination to put those two together. You got to consider that because that's the beauty of port. Is typically a dessert wine. It's a
Right.
sweeter wine, those kind of
Right.
things. So I mean, you can actually feel the stickiness, the sugar on the glass.
Absolutely.
well, is Dr. Scotch ready to talk about some more port?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, let's do it.
Bring Dr. Scotch.
They call me Dr. Scott. They call me Dr.
There he is. That quick.
Oh, I'm here.
Dr. Scotch. So, Dr. Scotch, we had
like
some
50
some
Superman.
port experiences tonight.
Yes.
We actually just reviewed the Glendronach Port.
It's a good one.
Sean actually brought out some port wine for us to taste.
Yeah.
So to talk about differences, but the question is, what's port? What's going on with the port?
Well, one of the most interesting things at the very start of port manufacturing is foot stomping.
They don't do that with sherry?
Traditional ports. Well, I'm not going to tell you what sherry does, but traditional ports, all the grapes are foot stomped. Now,
What do they get paid?
I don't know, but I will tell you that in the
Retirement job?
in the big shops, they use mechanical feet.
Ah, that's not fair.
Yeah, because they do lager.
Are they like cadaver feet?
That's gross.
So
Gross.
traditionally, you get the foot funk in that provides the yeast to get the grapes to ferment, and so you get that. But the key, one of the most interesting things is the reason port wines are so sweet is they mash them, they start the fermentation process, and then they add the fortification before the fermentation is done.
Yeah.
So essentially what they do is alcohol only produces, only ferments at a certain alcohol content. Once it gets to a certain content, like 14%, whatever normal wine is, the yeast
The
dies.
yeast is done.
So what they do is they will ferment for a while and then add that extra grape spirit into it, bring the alcohol content above, kill all the yeast, so now you've got residual sugars. And that's why these wines are so sweet.
Makes sense.
They're intentionally sweet.
So when you say they're adding, what are they adding in? Something that's already been
Brandy.
something that's already been.
That depends. You know,
That's the fortification.
They
Is that
can
what
do
that is?
brandy. They can do a neutral grain spirit. Or neutral grape spirit. It can be good brandy or it can be cheap brandy depending on the
Brandy
house.
is. Tell me what brandy is now that you're
Brandy
saying.
is a distillate of grape. So essentially, it's distilled wine.
Okay. So they're fortifying that wine with a distilled wine.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And so they bring it up. They kill the yeast, so it won't ferment anymore. And now you've got a fortified wine that's good for shipping across the ocean or whatever. Now the thing I noticed, you had a ruby and a tawny port. Now the interesting thing about those is the aging process. So ruby ports are typically younger, but in many cases rubies are essentially aged in a tank because they don't want it to oxidize. They want it to keep it fresh. They want to keep it bright. They want to keep it red. And so in a closed container like
Stainless steel or
stainless or glass or concrete or whatever, just something to keep the air out because you don't want it to oxidize.
All
And so
2 liters.
And so that brings you a
Oh,
bright, sweet whiskey. Whereas tawny ports, they put them in barrels, and then they'll age them for 2 to 50 years. And therefore, they go through the same oxidation. They go through the same angel share issues that any whiskey would have. Because if they leave them in the barrel for a long time, they oxidize, like an Oloroso sherry. It's an oxidized whiskey versus a PX, which is typically a younger,
Right.
non-aged. So
Well, that's quite interesting.
yeah, so the different whiskey or the different ports essentially start with the same grapes. These all come from the same grapes, grown in the same region of Portugal. But the way they handle them, the way they age them, the way they fortify them, when they fortify them, is what affects
Yeah.
How
all
they
of
stomp
them.
on them.
Yeah, how they stomp on them, whatever fermentation.
Sounds like a fun job for a while.
Right?
Now, one of the other interesting thing is, I noticed the bottles you have are actually Portuguese port. In the U.S.,
Yeah,
you're
'cause
not.
we don't mess around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in Europe, anything that's labeled as port has to be grown and aged in Portugal. In the U.S., you can put port on anything you want. There's no rules, no laws against it.
The more you know.
So some of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
American-made ports,
We're fast and loose here.
it may taste like a port, but it's definitely you need to understand that before you go buy a lot of American-made ports because
Dr. Port.
Dr. Port, it's
They
made.
call me Dr. Port.
Let go, man. Okay.
It's all the same process. It's all about fermentation, distillation, aging, all that kind of stuff.
So
questions?
port finishes. I mean, that's just some kind of really just an extra way to make something else, right? You got your sherry finish, you got port finishes. I mean, it's just
Yes, you create lots of different ports, and theoretically, they say port casks. Well,
it could
there-
be different.
there aren't a
obviously.
lot of ruby port casks because they don't age them in
Yeah.
port very. Ruby doesn't age.
Well,
in
that's a
port
really
casks.
interesting
That's
point.
right.
I was going to say, so when they're generic and they say port, what should we assume? It's almost like in the sherry world, if it says sherry, you can pretty much assume Oloroso. If it says PX, then you know it's PX. So when it says port,
I would assume
It could
tawny, but maybe not. I mean, you can season a barrel with whatever you want.
that's true.
That's a
That-
good
that's
point.
a good point.
That's a cheap point.
And you can put a ruby in a barrel for a year to get some refinement.
Well, and that brings up another point too. Are they? So when they're doing these port finishes, it's not. They have relationships with the sherry
Yes, they do.
cask
Sure,
people,
sure.
right? Like they've been buying sherry casks for a long time. They've got a supply chain.
Yep.
Whereas the ports, it's a little more one-off. So you've got somebody, an importer of some kind that's going to get some barrels because somebody at Glendronach or some other distillery wants to do a one-off, and so hey, I need 100 port barrels, right? And so are they getting tawny barrels that are just laying around? Are they getting some barrels that are already down there and they're just seizing them? there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat on this one, basically. So it just really depends. But I think that, at the end of the day, you don't have a supply chain for these, So, I mean,
Well, that's why each distillery has a master of wood.
right. But what I'm saying
which is a bad term. But
but what I'm saying
I didn't
is,
go there until you said
Wow,
it.
Doc.
for the sherry casks, you've already got established relationships. They know how many barrels they're providing. They know what the market is and everything else. For the port people, they're just hanging out making port, and somebody shows up and is like, "Hey, I'd like to buy 100 of your casks," and you're like,
Well,
I think
that's where they negotiate.
Right. I think that's exactly how. To me, there's a foundation or staple of we have X number of business partners for sherry and all these different things, and then somebody I would imagine the whoever's deciding the factor says, you know what, I got a contact that has a bunch of 100 port casks over there sitting there. Let's do some port. Let's figure it out.
Or maybe they've got 30 barrels and you need 40, and they're like, well, hey, I can season up some. I've got this ruby port, and so then you end up with a mix of tawny and ruby.
I feel like they're not going and harvesting because they have I have a plan. I'm going to make this port. It's more of a, you know what, we have an excess of this. Let's make it happen.
Well, that's what the master of wood. I mean, he's getting information from the master blender, the master distiller, saying, "I need some port finishes," and then he'll say, "Okay, what do you want?" And any good master distiller will know the differences.
That's a great question. I'm going to ask that at all the distilleries next year or this year when we go on our trip. It'd be cool to ask that question.
But who's your master of wood? That'll be.
Dr. Scotch wants to know who's your wood master.
If Dr. Scotch isn't there with us, we'll make Andrew ask.
That's right.
Okay, that'll work.
That's what we'll do. So, port, man. I think we definitely have a better.
We've talked a lot about port, how it's made, why they use different ports. Yeah.
That was fun.
Thanks, Doc.
Thanks, Doc. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Good seeing you, man.
Talk to you later.
Happy
See ya.
New Year.
They call me Dr. They call me Dr.
So I wanted to make sure I brought this guy. So our guy down in Ohio, Keith Multimec, he's like Glendronach 1520 port, and I completely forgot about that one. He made a comment that he thinks
That is
Glendronach does
fantastic.
it better with sherry, which I'm not going to
Agreed.
disagree with. Yes, they've got the sherry down, but I completely forgot about the Glendronach 20 port.
That
And
is a good.
to me, I wish I
bottle.
had that bottle to compare it against this one, because I mean they put tawny on that bottle,
Yes,
right?
they did.
So that makes it
And
a
that's
little bit
15-year-old,
different.
too.
Right. I mean, this one's 10. I still think it would be a good comparison bottle. I just don't
So
have
good.
any.
I
but
love that tawny
interesting,
I do
interesting
too. I
bottle to
like
bring
Tawny.
up. So we've got a couple more things to do. We got Scotch in the news to get through, and then we've got to get this. What's up with this guy?
Oh man, I can't
What's
wait
up
for
with that?
This is from Wheelhouse Whiskey. It's another one. So Wheelhouse sent us a bunch of, nice guy that he is, sent us a bunch of samples, and he sent us like 2 or 3 of them that are blind, and we have to just taste them, and I guess he's going to tell us what
And
they are.
describe
Yep.
what they are.
Dun 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 dun.
So you ready for some Scotch in the news?
Sure, we
Let's
can
do
do
the
that.
Scotch
Let me
news.
bring it up.
Good evening. Welcome to Scotch in the News. I'm Sean. This is Mark.
Mark is
All
on
right.
vacation at the
Scotch.
bar.
Give me a snake eye. Talk to us about some Scotch in the News, my man.
I don't have much. I got one particular article that I'm. This kind of caught me off guard. My wife actually found it this week. She was reading something on her phone, and she starts reading to me as I'm half asleep in the recliner, and I'm like, email that to me, right? And so I read it, and I'm like, all right, cool. So it starts off in one direction. It's basically an article on liquor.com. Actually, I have it on my clipboard here, and I'll put it in the chat so you guys can
put
go
that.
and read it if you want. But it starts off talking about is a 100-year-old single malt really needed, right? In the last couple, let's say 5 years, we've seen some old releases. We've seen a 70-year-old Mortlock that's hit the market, right? A 75. So are we really inching towards 100? And is that really realistic? I mean, is that just BS? Is this just a dog and pony show, or is it really good whiskey, right? Because if you read the article, one person makes a comment, says, if you spend 30 grand on a bottle of whiskey, Sean, you're invested to like it. All right?
Well,
Absolutely.
that's a good point.
Right.
Fair point. I will like this.
But,
right,
but
'cause I
here's
got
the
30
thing.
grand wrapped up in it.
There are 2 kinds of people that are going to buy that bottle. There's the kind of person that 30 grand isn't very much money, and they don't care if they like it or not.
Right.
They're buying it because it is 30 grand, right? Not because...
Or it's an investment. They're not going to ever open it.
Well, that's the
Right,
second
right.
person. You know, they're buying it as an investment, and they are never going to open it, so they'll never know if it's good or not, you know? But I think if you... I'm not saying whether it's a good idea or not. I mean, 100 years is a really long time to let a cask sit in a warehouse, you know? But I think if you bottled a 100-year-old whiskey, that there would be a huge market for it. It would be the first 100-year-old whiskey. If you don't think that would get snapped up in a heartbeat, you are crazy.
Well,
and
craziness out there.
My view with the bottle that old, or the barrel that old, 50 years in, it would have been wrapped in plastic or something. Because I can't believe there's any way that the wood would stay hydrated enough to maintain a barrel integrity for 100 years. Because as that angel share goes down, those top
start to dry out.
They dry out. Now you can roll them,
and-
but then you're gonna dehydrate more. You're gonna drop below 40% ABV like that. I mean, you just can't do that. I just don't see how it could happen.
I was actually listening to somebody. I was actually listening to Whiskey Cast, the podcast, and they were talking about this very article. And he talked about ways that you could, because in Scotland you lose ABV, you don't lose. Dr. Scotch taught us all about that.
Yeah, sweet.
And so he was talking about a way to get rid of water to bring your ABV
That's in this
back
article.
up
Oh, is it in
without
That's the next point.
messing stuff up, because you can't add anything to the whiskey, right?
Oh, so you put it in a humid room?
No. What they were doing is they're getting like metal poles,
Right.
like super chilled, and sticking them into the Scotch, and so the water in the whiskey freezes to the metal, and then you can pull the water back out, or mostly water.
There's a
back
term
out,
for it.
and so it raises the ABV.
Yeah, but then you lose volume.
Well, of
It's
course
called
you do.
cold fingering. And,
Yeah, it
and
is.
I mean, literally, that's the name of it. It's called and actually
fingering.
cold fingering, and it's
That's
not
generally
technically legal to the Scotch Whiskey Association.
And that's also generally not appreciated.
But,
Right.
Cold
but they're
finger
going to have to
sandwich.
catch you with the cold finger.
That's the problem, right? Exactly. I mean, it's interesting to think about. So let's say, I mean, let's be realistic, guys. You've got a barrel that's 80 years old. You've been maturing this thing for 80 years, and you go test it one Monday morning for Monday. You're like, oh, 40.1. I ain't losing this. Get the cold finger, right? I mean, and so you stick this rod in there, this frozen rod. The water.
Easy there, fella. You're next.
That's little buddy.
Little buddy.
Hey, little buddy.
Hey,
The
anyway.
water that's touching this frozen rod freezes to
Yeah,
it. They
but-
pull it out. I mean,
That would work, yeah. It
it's
seems cheating, but I mean, is it cheat? Well, or either that or you take it to no.
but is it gonna take that to get to 100 years? I mean,
It's got to.
I mean, I don't see any reason to go to 100 years, other than to say you've done it.
That's the only reason.
So
Right.
That's the only
the article is based
And
around.
we've all had a 50-year-old Scotch, and it
Sure.
was superb. But
Absolutely.
I can't imagine what more you could get out of that whiskey, letting it sit for another 5 decades that you hadn't already gotten. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So-
I mean, the article is centered around Gordon and MacPhail because they're the ones that really are poised to be able to do it. Honestly, Gordon and MacPhail has an older bottle of Macallan than Macallan does. I mean, or a cask, not bottle, but they have an older cask of Macallan. So if anybody's going to bring a bottle that's 100 years old to the market, it'll be Gordon and MacPhail. They're the ones that put the 70 and 75 out. And they were talking to one of the founders' great-grandsons that runs the, what they bottle right now. He's in charge of operations. And he
Wow.
point blank said, listen, it'll happen if it happens, if the Scotch is good. We're not shooting for 100
Right.
to say we got 100. We'll go to 100 because the whiskey that's when it was ready, which
No.
you're right about that. It wasn't ready
Nope.
at any point in time in those 100 years. I don't know about that.
Yeah, it was bad at 99 years, but 100?
Well,
Hit it.
At 99 years, we put it in this tequila cask to finish it.
I don't think that's happening.
And to upproof it.
It's
Yeah, we put in a bourbon barrel that's a 62.4. It's like a quarter full of bourbon. That way it proofed it back up so we could actually sell it.
Oh,
Your
gosh.
cold finger thing has spawned all kinds of stuff.
I'm looking at the
I
comments.
saw a
Everybody-
Dr. Cold Fingers.
We're talking about 100-year-old
Pickles.
scotch, and all everybody wants to talk about is cold finger.
Cold Fingers and mechanical feet.
Yeah, I do want to say cheers to Alan Ward. Thanks for joining us
Hey,
tonight.
hey,
Good to see you,
Alan.
So anyway, that was really what I want to talk about with Scotch and the News, because that one was off the beaten path and it was different, and it was actually an article about a couple of different topics, which was cool that you brought up the whole way they're pulling out water out of odors. I mean, they mentioned it in the article, so I was going to bring it up, and the fact that you went there, I was like, all right, what do you know about the cold finger?
So is it true SMW or Scotch Whiskey Society doesn't allow
That's
that?
what it said in the article, that it's according to the SWA, that's not allowed. They
It
don't
makes
like
sense
process.
because that does alter the mix in the barrel.
Sure does. So what do you got going on here?
Well,
We-
I've been
we're
texting
down
while you guys are talking. and
He's
he wants
dirtying
to
all
do-
our glasses.
Yeah, I know. I got to do the glasses.
We're 15 minutes down here. Alan, we just said hi to you. We've got to lock down a weekend in April. I know you gave us some weekends
couple
that
dates.
aren't good and a couple dates that are good, and we're going to pick from the ones that are good to you. And we're coming down to
Grab
watch
the
the
trees,
ponies
keep
with
these
you,
with us.
man. We're going to drink some whiskey and, put some $2 bets down. That's about all I can afford.
Keep those together.
Which, I'm good.
Do we need a? Let me get a Sharpie.
Where did I think you were going to go, Keith? I don't know. I mean, Indiana might be better than Ohio.
Keith's all talk. He's been talking about coming up to Indiana for like 3 years.
He did make it up for the
Him and
Round
I,
Table
Whiskey
one.
She Wines. Those guys are the same way. It's like, come on, just come on.
Just get up here,
We've
right?
had people from all over the place make it here.
I know. Dan Kroll flew in from Kansas.
We had Andrew from Scotland come down.
Yeah, no kidding.
Come
Eric
on,
Wade
man.
from California came over.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, but you can't come from Kentucky, really? Or,
Come
or
on.
Ohio?
Leanne was
That's a couple
Oh,
hours.
Leanne's been here, yeah.
We host all kinds of folk here. We'd love to have you.
Oh.
Speaking of hosting, while Drew's pouring up whatever he's got going on back there, we should probably talk about our trip because we only got a couple.
We have
stops
have
left.
5 seats left. 5.
Really?
That's it.
Those two came to. Okay, so we're down to 5. We have 30 seats on the bus, just so everybody realizes. The Scotch for Dummies are taking 5 because there's the 4 dummies and one of the wives is actually going to come on the actual bus portion of the trip. So that leaves 25 seats. Of those 25 seats, you're telling me there's 5 left.
That's
Yep.
it. They're all gone.
And I'm trying to sell 2.
So if
like,
you
today.
hurry, you've got 5 seats left. Go to our ScotchForDummies.com website. You can do all there.
First
Hey,
come, first serve.
TV sheet. Thank you.
Yeah, I got nothing to
You,
drink.
uh,
Dram.
Man.
You have some.
There's some back there, but I don't know what it is.
I brought the orange one and the orange.
I love it.
All right, boys. Here's the deal. So, Wheelhouse Whiskey sent us some stuff. He said, instead of one, to do all 3. It's the same distillery.
Same
But
distillery.
we've got 3 different ones here. We've got my glasses on. A 13-year-old Oloroso cask, 57.8.
Like that.
You want to pass that around? That's number 1.
Yep. Here you go. 13-year-old.
Be careful. The Sharpie numbers in the bottom, so be careful
Okay.
fingering it.
See, Bob says he's waiting for my crab cakes. Well, you got to come out here.
That's a win.
Number 2 is
Thanks,
a
Stevie.
24-year-old port cask.
Oh.
Interesting, right? We just talked about port. 57.8 for that one.
Wow.
So
Andrew's
that's,
drinking. He's smelling
so
that
what
one.
was the second one?
Am I
What finish?
really
I'm not even going to
Port.
taste it.
Port. So
20
Oloroso.
So 13-year-old Oloroso, 24-year-old port. And this last one is a 22-year-old sherry cask,
Wow.
57.8.
So the third one is probably Oloroso as well.
It didn't say
Probably.
Oloroso, it just says sherry cask.
Wow.
But they're all high AB, 57.8, 57.8.
Smells like Oloroso.
They're all
but yeah, that's a
57.8.
punch in the nose.
Yeah.
That's a bigger punch in the nose.
Ooh, that is
This one,
potent.
this one smells more
Man.
approachable than the
This
other
one
two.
smells a little bit creamier. It doesn't say what kind of port, does it? I hate to say it, but I think it smells like tawny.
Oh, yeah.
Probably is.
Man, that there's a visual pocket of gas right there.
I
just
know, my
smacking you in
God.
the face, going, "Not yet, not yet."
Yeah, 57, yeah.
I feel like
All right.
dude on there's something about Mary. You know?
Crab cake.
Whoa, what is this one again? This is number 2.
Wow,
the
they're
port.
all strong. They're all really.
Hey, Alan said he's bringing a
What's this one?
bottle or two of bourbon he helped pick to share on the bus. So we have discussed this whole bus trip.
Oh, this is interesting.
We have to arrive at said distilleries at least sober enough to still talk in complete sentences.
and do the tours.
So that 13-year-old Oloroso,
Is this number one?
that's really interesting. It's got a little bit of funk,
Oh, really?
but I don't
I
think
smelled the funk on
but
the
it's not.
finish.
It's not like a powerful spring break funk. It's just a subtle funk.
What you
See,
got?
to me, the port one, the second one, smells a little off.
What do you guys get in the nose so far? Any flavor
Wow.
profiles, Mark? We
Oloroso.
Yeah.
I get a little bit of his funk. I see where he's pulling that from.
You get it more when you taste it. But it's nicely balanced. Have you tasted it yet? It's got a little bit of the funk. Good sherry. It actually gets, like, the funk fades and the sherry stays. It's got a nice, sweet finish.
This port has some sourness to
Man,
it, which
that's
I don't know
strong. I
if
can't
that's
get
the
past
port.
the vapors.
But now that may be even a better port. I don't know.
See, to me, this one is a
It smells
stronger.
Rosa though.
Yeah, it's a lot more potent.
And this is an older one, too, right?
It's 24. So this 22 smells like it may just be the sweet spot for me.
That first one was 13, huh?
Mm-hmm.
God, it's hot. I really am curious to see what water's going to do to it.
Man, that's
That one's
good.
hot.
That's good though.
Your eyes are watering.
That doesn't happen every time.
That Oloroso is good.
That's nice, though. I like that.
Well, Tom wants you to talk about the 5-year anniversary gathering.
I did talk about that, didn't I? Yeah, we're gonna do something.
No, that 22-year-old is.
Boy, that's tawny.
I think
Tawny
that
all
we will
day.
probably do it after our trip, because we started in
it
what,
has to be.
August.
It
Yeah.
has to be.
So I'm not exactly sure on a date. We'll pick a date a little bit later on. We can't get in the way of our concert. You know what I mean?
I'm
But
down.
Sean's talking.
what I'd like to do is, we'll pick a date. We'll let you guys know well in advance so everybody can come down. We'll figure out some hotels or something, and we'll probably get together at, I don't know, probably an unsuspecting neighbor's house. Maybe we'll volunteer Mike.
Yeah, let's do mine.
His
hot, though.
wife would kill us.
It's hot.
I
It
think
smells like
we'll
tawny
do
to
something. We'll get together, and that way everybody can kind of share some bottles and just kind of
Yeah.
meet each other, talk to each other, and have a good time. We'll keep it subtle. Everybody can pet Molly.
It's going to be here then?
I guess
So
so.
is back row, it's going to,
Yeah, we can cater it.
we're going to have to cater that.
Yeah.
It's
So
gonna be-
wheelhouse. I want to say something about this number 2. This is the port.
The port cask.
I actually like that one quite a bit.
It reminds
but
me
it's strong.
Oh, it's a punch.
This
I-
reminds me of barbecue sauce, like mustard barbecue sauce. Like I don't know why, but it's the vinegar maybe or something. I don't know what it's going on.
So the
to me, it smells a lot like tawny port.
the 13-year-old is great. That 22 is epic. It's
That's-
subtle, but it's epic.
What was the
That's
ABVs
really
on them
nice.
again?
57.8.
All of them are
All of them
57.8.
That second one was like 65%. My lips are numb from the
Yeah.
No, he's not a SMWS member, is he?
But
I don't think he is.
Oh.
I think that's probably my favorite, number 3. But I liked the port. It to me
They're both good.
it was a punch in the face, but it was well balanced. It was well done, and you could taste the port. You know
Well,
what
I
I
don't
mean?
know why.
Like
See,
it's there, but it's
I-
not overdone.
It was a unique taste for me. I actually like that funkiness to it, that mustard, whatever it is. It's cool.
So I will say that the port, I'm getting a lot more of like old oak on the nose. It smells like a dirty old cask, and that's where I got the funk out of it. It's that old cask smell.
That last one, that 22-year-old,
That's ridiculous.
super good.
Try
You
number
bring them up.
1 after that one.
Is it got water on now?
No,
That's PX.
Man, we need to do that. We need to.
Too late for that.
you think that's PX? The 22 is PX.
No time for love, Dr. Jones.
Oh, he's fortifying. Well, we haven't had any water, so it's okay.
Yeah, we need to do water on these.
You think that's PX?
This is.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the young one again. Yeah,
22-year-old
it smells like
PX.
Oloroso.
Wow, who is this?
So yeah, I haven't been watching the review or the online.
I'm not watching comments. 'Cause I don't want any hints, but gosh, any guesses so far?
I've never been good at picking a distillery. all I can say is,
They're all good.
Edrador.
That's what I was thinking.
I think the port wood is not as well done. I think the port it may have been too long in the cask. It's 24, but it's just I'm getting too much barrel influence. It's kind of souring the whiskey itself. The other two I think are quite good.
Honestly, I think what you need to do is put a little water on that.
Well,
'Cause
let
I think
me-
it's actually
which one
pretty
is
hold on,
good.
before we do that,
that's the
number
port.
two.
Let me put a little bit more in each one of these. Give it a little bit more. What you got there? Let me sure it's the right one.
I might just show up with a $5 hot and ready Little Caesars.
Who said that? I'm good with that.
Bring some crazy bread, man. You gotta have
Yeah,
some
you
stuff
gotta do
to
the
soak
bread.
that up in the beginning.
Well, if we're cooking here, we don't mess around here.
No, that's
That's a
true.
water
We
each one of
eat in
those.
this house.
Yeah, I mean, I nobody goes hungry. Everybody leaves full, and we do some good stuff. I got some honorary titles just from crawfish boils and casino nights and some of the other stuff we've done.
Let me tell you something. Sean can cook. Holy
So
moly.
I gotta call this out. This is great, man. We're all destined for this. Fight for sound. I went from 40 bottles to 134 bottles in 2019.
Oh
Then
shit!
my wife found my bottles.
Ah,
And she doesn't drink.
Guilty
guilty as
Look
charged.
at Voorhees like, you done blanked up. Hey, Ron.
Hey, Ron.
I'm blanked up, hey, Ron.
You,
Go to Sean and Hennessy's.
you didn't mess up for buying the bottles. You messed up for letting her find them.
Right. That's where you went wrong.
You
my
need a
friend.
hidey hole
Whoa,
at that
hold
point.
on.
Okay, that port is.
Whiskey Whistle, thank you for joining. Good to see you, sir. Haven't seen you in a long time. Nice to see you,
no
buddy.
kidding, man.
Mark, good to
Happy
see you.
New Year, Mark.
Yeah, it's
Good
still
to
off a
see you,
little.
buddy.
So I would say the tawny or the port is better with water, but it's still off.
So wait, these are
That's
all
number
watered
one.
now?
They've
This
all
is
been
one?
watered.
Still has that Oloroso signature.
So again, on the podcast, number 1 is a 13-year-old Oloroso.
Yep.
Mark has that right now. Number 2 is the port. It's over here.
24-year-old port.
Yep, that's what
So-
I think Sean has, and then Andrew is going
So-
to 22 right now. The sherry.
I don't know how much details on the label. I don't expect there would be this level of detail, but I think that number 1 is an Oloroso finish. I don't know if it's been Oloroso this whole year, and if it has, I get a really strong oak. There's vanilla, really heavy vanilla on
This
this.
is number 1.
Yeah.
You think this is unbalanced? Really?
For me, it's
The
off.
port.
Yeah, I think it's great, man. It's to me the port. It's got
I mean, I
nice
get Oloroso
spicy
on
notes,
it.
but it's not overdone. There's a nice sweetness underneath it. That's a really nice, well done glass.
Is this
I like
2?
that. Yeah.
So this is the one that punched me in the nose neat.
Oh, it's still gonna punch you in the nose.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want you getting the wrong impression.
What do you think of the one? So Drew, what do you think of
Closing
the
in on
13-year-old
200.
with
I
water?
like it. I like it better with water. It gives me
Yeah.
It gives me more.
Jason,
of
if you
the,
need help, just give us an address. We can show up and help you with those numbers.
The sherry's more refined.
We can help
more
it
of
bring
a
it
blend of
down.
the wood and the sherry together.
Yeah.
It's actually better with water. I like it a lot.
Honestly,
I'd agree.
with water,
The,
I think
she-
the port's the winner.
the number 1 so far is really a really good balance with water.
I like number 1. I like them all. They're all great. Don't get me wrong. It's like splitting hairs, really.
This is
But
2.
but I really liked the port.
Man, I love the nose in this
port
port.
is so much more approachable with that water.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Everything comes out.
Everything's better.
Everything that's in there, you get now.
It's much
Yeah.
better.
I'm telling you, I get something with barbecue that
It was
mustard
very
barbecue.
closed
really
off,
nice, man.
but it was closed off because of the alcohol.
57%
It's like,
ABV,
oh,
yeah.
jeez, I can't breathe. So this is that 22-year-old that I liked neat the best.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. That's really
It's
nice.
better, but man,
So,
the nose is giving me
While
this
we're getting
sour.
through this, when's Keith coming over
It
here?
is, but that's
Did he
why
put it
I like,
on there?
I like that. You're not
No,
a big
he
fun guy.
didn't.
When are you coming to be on the show, man? Don't be shy.
Who?
Malted
Keith,
Man Cave.
Malted Man Cave.
It's not like it's that far.
I ain't talking to that guy anymore.
All right.
He's full of hot air.
All right, so we are, as soon as Drew tastes out, we're at
We're
10:58. We got to run. We can run a little long, but we can talk
So
through
the
these.
nose
It's
is
our
not
show. We
as,
can do whatever we want.
the nose isn't as
I know the
potent as it
director.
was with water.
So the question is, when do we want Wheelhouse Whiskey to
So
reveal?
let's go around
yeah,
and say
hold on.
what you thought about what
Each one.
Which one did you prefer the most, neat and with water, and it may be different.
Wow, this is tough. They're all good.
It's tough because you didn't have a chance to clear your palate between them so
Yeah,
much.
so I think the 22, and maybe I'm judging on age because I know the number. It seemed more refined for in every situation. It seemed more refined with neat, and it seemed more refined with water. The 13 though, I think would be more of my wheelhouse for those because it's more rich in flavor, I think, than the 22. The 22 is very refined. The 13 is rich and flavorful. The 24, the sour funk on it, it's not for me. Others may like it, but it didn't hit me right tonight.
Okay, so
Alright.
if you had to pick right now,
Knowing the price difference between the 13 and 22, I'd probably go with 13.
you do know the price
I
difference?
don't. I have no idea, but I would assume it's probably twice. at least
You know
twice
what
as expensive.
assuming does. Don't make an ass
I'm
of
assuming
this.
it's twice as expensive as
Andrew's
the 13.
going to stick with his White Claw.
All right, Sean, you're up, my friend.
All right, so neat. I think I really enjoyed number 3, which is what, the 22-year-old sherry
Yeah.
finish. It was just really nice neat.
Yeah,
very
it was,
good.
it was approachable. It was refined. Had a nice sherry finish to it. The 13 was good, but it just felt a little bit disjointed compared to the other two. You know, and it's showing its youth.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, just a
true.
little bit. Not that it's a bad scotch, just that it is what it is. With water, I really liked the port. It made it much more approachable. I thought the depth of flavor was really nice. It just had a lot of character to it. I liked some of the spice notes to it. It had a good port taste without being overdone, which, you know, we've been talking about all night is really hard to do. If I had to pick a second place, it would probably be the 22. It just lost a step, I thought, compared to the port. I mean, the port really came out of the gate, you know, swinging like a crazy person, and then you put some water on it. It was like, all right, well, we can go to the dance now.
Right.
So,
That's true.
so I mean, that's kind of where we're at. But I really enjoyed the port one. Really neat was good too. It was just a little bit strong and not as easy to get to everything that it had to offer, I guess.
All right, I'm pretty much in line with you. I thought the last one, the 22-year-old sherry, which I'm assuming was Oloroso, didn't quite come at me as strong as an Oloroso as one did. That one, when you nosed it, you're like, that's Oloroso. I know that is. But I really thought that was wonderful, neat, and with water. The second one, the tawny, the tawny.
Or port. You're thinking it's tawny.
It's tawny port.
It's port, but
It's port. It's tawny port. All right, whatever. Port.
I just tasted the rest
that
of
guy.
weed.
Neat was tough.
It's funny
It was
because it's
really
all
tough
malt.
to get into it because of the
That's
ABV.
good.
Even though they're all the same ABV, it just was hard to get into it. Water opened it up and it was enjoyable. I did think it had a signature tawny port smell to it on the nose. To take it to his analogy, I wanted more than just the dance. I wanted the after dance. You know what I mean?
You wanted the cold.
you want the
thing.
cold finger? Oh, I said the same thing.
So I'm gonna go 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna pass the
3,
buck
2,
with
1. All right.
that one.
All right, let's do a recap. So you did what? What was your order?
So, I think 22 is a better whiskey, but for day to day and based on price, I'm assuming price, I'd go with 13. But the 22, I think is the best whiskey of this
don't
group.
worry about price. What's your
22 is the best of those.
So you did 3, 1, 2.
Yes.
What did you do? You did 1, 2, 3.
No,
he-
she did 2.
I did
2, 3, 1.
3 for neat or with water.
Just whatever.
There was no number 4.
If you had to pick one.
2, 3, 1.
Okay. What did you do?
I did 3, 2, 1.
Okay. So I know what they are now because I looked, unfortunately.
What'd you do?
It's okay.
So what's what?
So what do you guys have any idea who it is?
I
Distillery wise,
Any guesses?
I've never been able to get that.
Throw it out there.
said Edredor.
Edredor, okay.
I would.
McAllen.
No.
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 Let me refresh you guys and start over a second. We've not reviewed this yet. This distillery.
Really?
Really?
Well, I'm
is
probably
cool.
not going to guess it.
That
Have
is
we
cool.
had one of these yet?
Probably
no.
not.
We have.
Uh-oh.
Really?
Not here.
That was in
In Kansas.
Kansas.
Shit.
Oh, well, now he's not going to remember.
Yeah.
Think-
Right?
He doesn't
not
remember
helping.
much of Kansas.
So this is something that
All right, so
let
you-
me. I haven't talked about I love every one of them. They're all
Oh, they're great.
absolutely great.
I actually, because I don't know if you know me or not, but I like funky things, and I think that port wood's outstanding. I love it.
It's good.
And I think it's a toss up between the 13-year-old's damn good too. It's that really good blend. I think the 22-year-old has an edge on it, but 13's really good too. I love them all, but I can tell you right now, knowing what they are, I don't own a bottle of this yet, any of them yet. I'm gonna start buying the bottles of it. This is Cavalan.
So it's Indian.
It is.
It was an Indian whiskey.
I don't have. I remember we had some. And
That's
So
not
it's not
Scotch.
Scotch.
Well, no wonder
man.
we don't know what we're
I've
talking
been
about.
bamboozled with a cold finger.
you got cold fingered, but it's delicious. They're good.
They're
The
very
22
good.
is a really.
I'm gonna.
I
take
can't
this board.
believe anything less for 22 years in a barrel in India. No,
Yeah.
that's Taiwan, isn't it?
Cavalan's Taiwanese.
Taiwanese, yeah.
Yeah, Amarat is
Yeah.
Indian.
You just said you get cold.
I don't know what you guys talking
All
about.
right. So
I
we
don't
are,
wanna
the
know.
wheels are off, obviously, because it's the end of the show.
Wait till we
So-
come back at 2 in the morning.
I want to say thank you for those samples, Wheelhouse.
They're
That was
amazing.
a cool, fun
Very good.
experiment.
You
I
rock.
mean, I would have. I wish we had a little bit more time so to
Taiwanese,
clear
yeah.
clear palettes in between each one to really get separating lines between them. But they're definitely three unique whiskeys, and it was
I like
fun to separate them. And they all had their own thing going on. But I could pull out. Cavalan got me.
There's
Doggone it.
some uniquenesses to it that
Yeah,
that are
yeah,
different, but I mean they're similar at the same time. I for one would love to buy a bottle or two of this, and I would be fine with us reviewing a bottle or two.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're a player in the whiskey market for sure, because they put out good whiskey.
But that was a nice interesting
something.
side blow there for you, Wheelhouse. That was a good one. That was we had no idea.
You fell for the banana and the tailpipe.
We did
Yes,
fall for
we
the banana
did
in the
fall
Alright,
for
tailpipe.
guys.
the banana and the
The
tailpipe.
bait and switch.
So, anyway, happy Thursday. That's that, right? It's a wrap.
Very good.
Thanks for
Glendronach
joining
Port
us,
Wood,
guys.
Port Wood whiskey, or Port Wood wine, port wine. What's on the horizon, guys? Real quick, 30 seconds.
Got 5 spots left on the
5
bus.
spots on the bus.
Get
That's
on the
big
bus.
thing. We've got a lot. We've
Don't wait.
got some new series
Hey.
coming out.
Before we broke 9,000 subscribers. I want to
Yeah,
at least
you
make,
better pour something
I
for
gotta
that.
pour something for that.
Here's some
you know,
sherry.
some of that tonic.
Or some port.
No, I'll go with tonic.
Do you need anything?
Drink it.
You got some.
No, I
I'll
don't
drink
need
the
it all.
13-year-old. I like that.
I like the port. I'm good.
All right, so to 9,000 subscribers.
Cheers, guys.
Congratulations, man. Good
Thanks
job.
for all
man.
your support, y'all.
Thank you, everybody out there.
Absolutely.
and-
Couldn't
and
do it
for
without
watching,
you.
supporting us. The comments have been great. They've been keeping me busy. I appreciate it.
And thank you, podcasters, for listening to us as well. We're seeing an uptick in that as
I
well.
love
We
that.
are seeing an uptick, and that really surprised me because I'm not a podcaster myself. But I mean, I think that's really neat that we're able to get this show out to other folks. You know?
Awesome.
So
Different venue.
anyway, happy Thursday. Till next week.
We'll see you next week, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers,
Sláinte.
man.
Cheers.
Sláinte.
I already drank mine.